All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the salon with Nat and Martha Sharpe, where we will be discussing their documentary about the childhood education and the future of education and the documentary that they've done. And we may get the world premiere first viewing of the documentary in the salon itself. Maybe. We'll see how it goes. Uh, but yeah, for starters, I guess let's just chat with Nat and Martha and ask them like how did they get started doing this? What's the backstory? Nat,
Oh man, the
Martha?
backstory of the fellowship.
Yeah.
Okay.
So did you so this is tied up with the O'Shaughnessy Ventures, and like did you all come up with the idea of doing the documentary before that or after? I think you pitched the documentary idea to
That's
Jim and
right.
Trent, right?
So Martha and I, we met like 12 years ago.
Yep.
I just graduated from film school. She was really interested in storytelling. We made a couple movies with our friends, hit it off, fell in love, started having
Oh.
kids, and didn't really get much chance to make, more movies like we wanted to. So when Jim O'Shaughnessy started the O'Shaughnessy Ventures, we realized like, oh, this would give us an opportunity to actually like
Try
make a
making
movie.
movies
Yeah,
again.
making
Yeah.
movies. Like we made some like YouTube videos and things on the side, but we hadn't really been working together.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
there'd always been one of us staying at home with the kids.
Yeah.
So this was an opportunity to do it. So we ended up getting the accelerated fellowship, which we invented.
We invented it. Yes.
we needed a little more than $100,000 for a year
for both of us anyway. Yeah. Otherwise, I would have had to keep working and
yeah. So O'Shaughnessy Ventures was very generous in changing the term. So it's been 6 months, and like this is the last month.
Yeah, we're almost done already. Most people are just starting their fellowship, and we're on our way out already. We're literally the guinea pigs. The first one's in, the first one's out.
Yeah. So it's been great though. Like we made like over like 11 YouTube videos, and then we finally made like kind of a longer documentary. But yeah, it's been a learning process too. Like
yeah, we actually made a pitch video for our application. Yeah, so which Jim just loved, and it turns out that he just loves movies in general, and he also has a soft spot for alternative education because he actually went to a Montessori school, which we didn't even realize at first, So yeah, these are both passion points for him, and so he's just like, yeah, let's do it,
Yeah, and we chose alternative education because like we've been unschooling our kids pretty much since the beginning. We've never had them in public school, and we really are interested in like the self-directed kind of approach where it's like you let the kids follow their interests, and supposedly it works out. I mean,
we kind of something we've done since the beginning is what we call so far so good. Like we're willing to try something out if it sounds like it might work or a good idea. And if it goes well, we might keep doing it. And if not, we'll try something else, So it's the same with like education with our kids or parenting approaches or even things that we've tried on our own.
We try all sorts of things.
We're all about experimenting on ourselves and our children. But it's like so far so good. We'll try it out and see what happens.
So yeah, there you go. That's the backstory.
So what was great about this fellowship is we got a chance to try out so many things. Actually, it was the first time we were able to get like a live-in nanny. We've been talking about that for a long time, never been able to afford it, of course. But we were able to do that so we could work together. We were able to buy a school bus and make it into an RV, which is something I dreamed of for years. And it's very symbolic because we're transforming school into something new, right? Whatever, but it was just an excuse. And what else were we able to try? Nat's really into AI, so he was able to do all sorts of AI video stuff.
All the AI video that are coming out, I was able to do a lot of exploration on that.
Yeah, and we also had to do a lot of experimenting, like how are we even going to approach this fellowship? education thing? Were we going to travel to a bunch of schools? Were we going to just interview a bunch of people? Were we going to do this or that? We even came up with like a mini fellowship where we'd give unschooling graduates $1,000 each to like film themselves. That
didn't work out.
Well, it didn't work out. Well, we only got 2 applicants, and one of the applicants actually ended up in our documentary, so that worked out. But then we were able to use the money we were saving for that to help with the schoolie too, so that's nice.
I love how you are highlighting just even the process of creating the documentary. A lot of the work that I've done in my career has been, in the last couple of years, I worked with higher grant education and I worked with a virtual school, and I talked with so many families who are exploring alternative options. And part of that is just accepting the philosophy, you know, like choosing a public school is like you're thinking that there is a set path, like already from the beginning you are entering this framework of set path. And even just the question of, oh my gosh, how do I deconstruct this? It's a giant question of how do I find options for education that are fit for my family, in my location, for my needs. Like it is, I sort of dreamed like of a design thinking course for how to, as a parent, navigate education options. And I think just even how both of you are highlighting just how you even approached how to talk about your own path as parents, to look for options and how to depict that. Like it's just, it goes into that category of it's very ambiguous, and we needed to, like, I love that what you shared about so far so good, you know, having trust in yourselves in the same way the kids learn to have trust in themselves navigating their education. So philosophically, I think it's like so aligned.
Interesting.
Yeah, and in terms of alternative education, like there's so many micro schools popping up, like people trying new things, because
especially online. Yeah,
it's pretty, I mean,
nobody is happy. Nobody's happy with education.
The teachers aren't happy, the kids aren't happy, the parents aren't happy, but the school system is the system in place, right? It's free. That's what most people are doing. You know, you have the school buses that even take the kids to and from school. I mean, it's convenient. So the families that we met and talked to were willing to really take a lot of risk and to do something different, you know?
So we ended up doing, like, we filmed like probably like 100 hours of footage, tons of interviews. I visited a school in New York, places in San Francisco. I mean, it was just crazy. And then we were all planning on like putting it like into like this one documentary about alternative education. But then towards the end, like 2 months ago, we realized, oh crap, this is gonna take forever. And like, so we decided to focus, like we did not budget our time well.
We discovered that 6 months is not a lot. Yeah.
This was the learning. This was the learning that happened. Like, so we realized, okay, we had 10 hours of footage just of one school that was like very, like about as radical as you can possibly get. So we ended up making a longer movie just about that school and kind of like showing the most like extreme example.
Right.
But we won't talk about that because we'll show it to you.
Spoilers.
Yeah. So yeah. Any other questions or? Yeah, it's been a wild ride. It's been really crazy.
And honestly, it's really hard not to feel like failures too.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it was even hard coming to this salon today because we're like, how are we going to go on here and talk about this stuff when we just feel like total failures? Like,
yes.
So
I mean, this is one reason, like, yeah, creativity, at least in my experience, is so painful, because like once you actually have like the actual, like, no excuses, and you have the time and the resources to do something, all you're left with are your own limitations. Like, so like we had these great dreams of these, you know, a series of movies or all these things that we thought we could do in this time frame, and we didn't do them. Like, we did not. I mean, it hurts. It's so painful.
Yeah, and in terms of like self-directed education, are we talking about self-directed education?
I don't know.
I don't know. But anyway, I mean, that's the thing, is like when Jim started doing these fellowships, I realized he is giving adults the opportunity to play. You know, like we've been doing with our kids. You know, I went to public school, and if you go to public school, or they're going to tell you what to learn, and tell you what to do and what tests to take and how to be successful, whatever. And you don't have a lot of opportunity to just play with what you're interested in doing. So like, here we are, we're grown-ups with 5 kids, and we're getting the opportunity to play at making movies, which we never got to do. Well, he got to do it as kids more. He got to make some really interesting movies as a kid. But we won't show you those ones.
Well, I think I really relate to the feeling of like the world of education is so vast. For me, when we growing up, I was that kid who was like in school and wanted to know like what was like who chose the books I got to read and what influenced the system that I was in. And I've never stopped being curious about that. But as I worked in education, I mean, states have different policies. There's so many different schools. I mean, I think what you're wrestling with is a natural conclusion I've come to wrestle with is just the world of education is vast. It impacts every single individual. And I think that having an outcome of a documentary where you're focusing on one school highlights the importance of like, if we all just kind of sit back and realize like everyone who's trying to say like there's one solution just has it wrong, because it is so diverse in terms of what options you can do, the system of what education is, the cultural expectations that surround it. It is like, sometimes I just sit there and I go, oh, I decided to like try to understand one of the biggest, most complex systems in all mankind that is still forming. It is imperfect. And I just appreciate you sharing the vulnerability of like what you wrestled with in making a documentary, because when you think about the problem, it is massive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of our time was actually spent discussing what we were even exploring and the purpose of education, you know? So one thing we ended up looking into is
brainwashing.
Yeah, well, it's community. Like there's this longing for community, and a lot of people go to these schools seeking community because that's like where the kids are for their kids. And so community and education are tied together very closely. And we kind of realized during one conversation that that's kind of the purpose of education, is to bring kids up to be functioning members of a specific community.
Yeah.
So the question is, what is the community they're being raised to function in?
Yeah.
You know,
if you're being raised in Sparta, your
education is going to be very different.
Education is very different than if you're being raised in Athens. So.
Exactly.
And which one's better, right? It kind of, I mean, from that perspective, it depends. So.
Yeah,
right.
I love that. I mean, the adding in the world of ed tech, and ed tech has so many solutions and valuable things, but a starting point of what is the local context, right, is so important. And even like schools started as like one-room schoolhouses to like meet the needs of a specific community and help increase like literacy rates to support the entire like village or environment. And so that's just a great point that you bring out. I think sometimes it gets lost in how we talk about education, especially even now we're all calling from different parts of the world and we have different concepts of what education means to us.
So Anna asks, like, I'm always wondering, what do we do when you're already an adult? Enter intellect.
There you go.
I mean, like this, why do people go to inner intellect? Like, no one is forcing, you know, all of you here, who I'm, you know, glad you joined us, but it's like none of you are you're even paying to be here, right? I mean, it's like you're assuming there's going to be some benefit that you'll gain from that.
You're not getting college credit, and you're not going to end up with a degree, or it's just like you're just interested.
I guess that's the thing. It's just like follow your interests. Like, I mean, that's.
And that's well, there actually, there's a term called deschooling, which refers to like when people first pull their kids out of school, and it's like a vacation period where you basically do nothing to just detox from the whole school structure, school expectations, school everything, you know, and just start just letting your natural interest and curiosity reemerge, because that's part of.
This is the thing, though. Like, I think it'd be better just to show the movie we made instead of talking about all these theories.
Experience stuff.
This is the thing. Like, it's just who cares? Who cares what we think in a certain sense? Like, I mean, I think. But, well, I mean, you do it, but it's like I don't know. I think that's yeah, like that's one reason we made a movie though. It's like because we wanted there's this principle of storytelling, and it's called show don't tell. And it's basically the idea that like the most impactful stories or things is conveyed through action, right? And then there was like
because there are plenty of YouTube videos or people out there doing podcasts or whatever about all these
so many
different
people
kinds
talking.
of
Everyone's
education.
talking.
But it's all theory. It's all, you know, what we're doing now, basically.
Who gives a crap? Who gives a crap?
But actually watching it in action is so different. It's like when I watched, I mean,
we were like anthropologists. That's
yeah.
Yeah,
that's what it's like.
It's like we were gonna if we could have had who's the British guy that does the nature documentaries?
David Attenborough.
Yeah, we actually we contacted him and we pitched him to do our narration, and he thought about it, but he was like, oh no, I don't think so. No. But yeah, it would have that was at least for me, like that was my kind of main hope of this like movie, is that it would show people something they had never seen before.
Right.
Like that's what I wanted to do. And it's like, I don't care what conclusions people draw from it, really. It's just like, if it's something you've never seen before, that itself is valuable. Yeah.
And in a certain sense, our goal, in a certain sense, we hope that it leaves people with more questions than answers.
Exactly.
You know, I think that might be the effect of it. In fact, people might be frustrated that we didn't give them the answers. We'll see. I don't know.
I mean, this would be a great moment to start playing it if you want to start playing it now.
Okay.
I'm hooked. I'm like, what is this gonna be?
Good. Okay, let's see if we can.
Desktop 2.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Okay, and then share sound.
Okay.
Everyone may have to mute. I don't know how that works with sharing movies. Do you guys know how to share movies on
open the system preferences? Oh, we probably have to leave and come back.
Oh, is that how it works? Okay, so yeah, we might have to leave.
Because we have to adjust our finger.
You want to share your screen? Would that work or no?
Yeah, okay, we're gonna have to quit and come back.
We have to come back.
I can change it as the host of the call.
Oh no, this is our personal setting. Yeah, we'll be.
This is really exciting. I was able to watch the first one and I loved it, and so I'm excited for everyone to see it.
Incredible cliffhanger technique.
Yes.
I'm gonna show you something you've never seen before.
That's
they leave the stage.
That's how you get someone excited about what you're about to show them, right? It's
Allison,
just,
say something. Allison, I can't hear you. Are you saying something? I can't hear you.
All right, so
okay,
we're gonna turn on our video. I'm gonna share our screen. So probably make it as big as you can in your screen. All right, you ready?
Can you see it?
I see it.
Great.
Yeah, let's go.
You see a blue school bus.
Exciting.
All right, here we go.
I'm gonna mute myself.
When my husband and I started having kids, we were not interested in public schools. So we've spent the last 10 years seeing what else is out there. And we found something that turned our idea of education upside down. We're on our way to go visit a school up in the mountains. We found a school where kids can do whatever they want all day. No homework, no tests, no grades. What does that even look like? We reached out to see if we could come with our own kids and see what it's like. And they gave us permission to film everything.
Just is the audio okay?
It's good.
Yeah. When we pulled up, I could already see how this place could be a kid's dream. Hanny, one of the founders, greeted us when we arrived.
So does the property go all the way down to the road? There's actually a creek that runs right across in the back, which separates it from the road. It's perfect. We looked for a long time for property like this.
I am lost on my bum.
Oh no.
Not good.
As Hanny showed us around, it was clear how much thought had been put into creating spaces where all sorts of different activities can happen.
No, it's like a baby, no kids in the bathroom, kinds of toys.
You scoped it out, huh?
After a brief tour, he turned us loose.
So feel free to go anywhere you'd like. But anybody, there are 2 people here that want to be on the film. Okay, and I'll bring them out to you. Okay, thank you.
My child just refused to go to school one day. It was simply that I knew when he didn't want to go to school and see his friends that it was time to make a change. So we looked up unschooling and then saw Zigzag, and they had a little video in there, and my child started crying at 9 years old because he's like, I want to go to the school.
Charter school is not the best. Like basically public school, a little better. There's some bullies there.
I dropped out mid-6th grade because I was struggling a lot with my mental health, and it changed my life for the better.
The adults here are called facilitators instead of teachers. And their role is basically to make it a great place to play and learn.
I'll do one step, like I'll put a new thing on, and then the kids will see that and get excited, and then they'll kind of finish it. Probably later in the day, if I had a few things in here, the kids will jump in and start wanting to do some more.
It was a cold morning, and one of the facilitators had started a fire.
For the last 5-6 years, I knew that something was wrong. I was working in schools a lot. I found this last year, and it's been life-changing. In the schools, I'm bored. I'm not only am I bored, but I'm sick of like having to test them and make them sit down and shut up and all that stuff that they're doing all day, every day. When I'm here, I feel like I work for the kids.
No, wait, no, I'm gonna go off the photographer.
Something like that. But when we started this and we looked at lots of options, we went to Montessori school, Sudbury school, to Waldorf schools. For me, like the self-directed thing that actually does flip the script and makes the kids really in charge of their lives now is mom.
So what's the difference between like this and Waldorf and Montessori?
So Waldorf, like you have more activities that are more encouraged to do. Montessori was kind of like this, except you had set times when you went outside. I like this better, because like you can do pretty much whatever you want.
You'll see this very soon when we start the topic. This is basically how we set our day. We're gonna have a meeting in about half an hour or so, and we're gonna have all these things that you see in here kind of announced, talked about, and then you get to add things that you want to do as well.
Soon there was a mass migration to the main floor from Morning Circle. These schools are called Agile Learning Centers because they use agile tools from the software world to add structure to the day. I was a software developer, so I know about Kanban boards, retros, and stand-ups, but our meetings never quite started like this.
Delicious.
God.
They like to be in a circle. When he sees a day, he's gonna clear away. Very good. It's an act.
In through the nose.
Here's along with Dana is actually going to be in the workshop today, so we're going to use this video for the feeding blanket. There is going to be a smoothie challenge. 1 to 11:30, and then jiu-jitsu at 12. Just get in Matthew. Okay, going across for offers. Have your hand up, please. Sean. Going across, Gemma. Dance party at 1.
After the big meeting, everyone disappeared. We didn't realize they were going to smaller meetings called spawn points, which we unknowingly interrupted.
How about you, Ashley? What are you going to do? A lot of rooming?
So what is the one that is sort of Are you going to do the offers?
This one.
Oh, the improv game. I've done improv before. What are you gonna do today?
Me too.
What are you doing computer club?
Just coding. I know how to scratch. I know how to do JavaScript. I know how to do a lot of coding platformers. He's also going to Pokemon training. And so that means
The kids voted on last semester what they're interested in. So everything here is from the kids' interest. So all the stuff here are all the classes that the ideas that they came up with. And then we have like a whole voting system for a week. And the ones we could find a facilitator to offer are the ones that are on the board this semester.
We've done with the smoothies, I guess. As for the offerings, the kids are free to come and go as they please. Or not come at all.
I announced this morning, but I think until someone sees it, they don't really get it or care. So I'll just keep doing it. Maybe people will show it.
I've run into the same problem at home. We're all interested in different things, and we can't force our interests on others, but we can offer to share them.
So who wants to just style their mannequin's head, and who wants to learn the first steps of haircutting? You're just gonna sass it? That's fine. That's
Well, once I encountered this idea of consent, that a child has the right of consent to what they learn, that was it. Like, it went into my head and it wouldn't go out. You have to be a good teacher to be with kids when they have consent. Otherwise, they're not going to listen to you. I knew I was a better teacher than the teachers who were in charge, because they were using power all the time. I was able to teach without power, and they found that threatening. But here we celebrate that.
Can I
Meanwhile, the drama of the trading blanket was unfolding.
Everyone who wanted that would put what they would trade for it in the middle, and then I can either take my thing back or swap it with someone else.
One child showed up with nothing to trade.
This question.
Oh, thank you, Edgar. Thank you, Elliot. You have 2 things to trade.
This was one of the most popular offerings. I know some parents who won't even let their kids do trading because they're afraid that it will be unfair.
It's a Lego, and there are some Pokemon cards here. Yeah.
What is that thing?
It's like a robot.
It has the sun inside. All right, Elliot, make his choice.
But who decides what's fair?
It's your turn if you want to choose. All right, what's the pick your pick? Oh, autonomy. I'll just talk to that.
And this means the kids got to decide.
10 Canadian dollars, a shell, rock, and bracelets. Oh, kind of egg. What's in the hatch? Oh, a magical cube.
That's not normal. That's not normal.
One thing I loved was just how both the kids and the adults just wandered around. They ate when they were hungry. They rested when they were tired. Sometimes they did things with other people, but they were happy being alone.
Did you cut that whole thing?
Yeah, it's taken me like 4 days. Got a bit more of Dublin's quarters now. It is well started and not heating up delivering it.
I named the back room Dublin's quarters. So I assume you're Dublin. Technically, legally, it operates as an activity space for unschooling families. That's another thing people misunderstand the difference between homeschooling and unschooling. Unschooling for me is very radical because it says that we're learning all the time and that we don't have to control that process.
When we first came, he was like, well, when are we going to start learning? Because he thought he had to sit down at a desk with some paper and pencil.
I'm a former community college instructor, so that's what I did before I stayed home with the kids. When they're toddlers, most people are unschooling and don't know it, right? So we just kept that approach. I feel like my children are going to hopefully retain more of what they learn because they care about it and they want to do it. You know, they don't know that they're learning something, but they are.
Okay, there, and then we're gonna show where the ghost shops are coming from.
Experiencing it is key.
Watching a documentary about unschooling.
Experience what kids are like when they're totally free. You never ever want to go back to top-down education. It just doesn't make sense.
I start to warn you for whatever documentary this is for. Not all kids are as smart and awesome as me.
Unschooling sounded great. And there was no doubt the kids were learning a lot, but were they learning subjects that weren't necessarily fun? Like reading and math.
When we forgive ourselves and each other, practicing acceptance and love for our deepest strengths.
And there's almost this angst and tension that teachers have that, you know, that you have to learn these things or something is going to happen to you, that you're not going to be successful in some way.
It has a lot of confusing words. That's what I do here.
But
Okay, in this shiny patch.
I think that's what the essence of this, that kids are people. They're built in, they're come with all of the tools they need. It's kind of like walking and talking.
It says, if you do one. On the bottom it says, if you do one.
I think because it says if you've seen these mews, probably if you see them, they're gonna attack you.
And then I realized the question wasn't whether they would learn it, but when they would learn it.
If you do one, you will survive. If you don't want to.
As long as they're in a rich environment that is rich in opportunities and a community of different age kids and adults around them, that's what we're made for. But for some reason, there's this decision at 5 or 6 years old that, well, no, now you have to do it our way.
3.14159. This is pi followed by 2653589 circumference over time. 79732 OMG. Can't you see? 8462643 and now we're on a screen. 38 and 42. 7,000.
Reading, writing, math, all of these things are just part of how we live our lives now, and they always come. It just, when do you need them?
I don't know. Yeah. I'll just read the bottom part so that you can be equally authentic before the mirror of self and the mirror of society. Well, when we roll. Does that seem true too? Halfway.
Because there were no grades, the kids were free to learn at their own rate. All ages of kids were mixed together. There was one little girl who seemed to be everywhere. I could easily imagine how much she was learning by having access to everything that was happening.
Firefighters. Earlier in the town, fire truck came here for us to check out the fire truck.
And since we were there, she got a crash course in filming and interviewing.
If it's a red dot, it's recording. If it's a white square, it's not recording. Now it's recording.
Don't worry, Mom's back in.
Okay.
Hey, hello, little fella. What you doing? Tell me what you're doing today. I'm making cookies. Okay, cooking stuff sounds nice. And tell me what the baby is doing.
She, I think, is getting tired, so I'm holding her. And she got a crash course in babies.
You had a lot of fun. Now it's time to take a nap. All year. You're not sleeping.
You know what this is? It's a planetary gear system.
Oh yeah, the gears like rotate.
Yeah, right.
What I want to do whenever I grow up is a lot of things related to science and technology and stuff. So robotics engineer, rockets, coding, chemist, things like that.
This is the side where the motor goes. So there's the sun gear goes in the middle is pretty straightforward. Yeah.
I've taken apart lots of things.
I went to public school and I didn't know what I wanted to do after I graduated. Like, what? I was lost, you know, because I didn't have the freedom to like make my own choices.
I'm applying to the new media program at UNCA. I'm really into coding and like web design and VR and AI. I'm really interested in like making a career out of that. A lot of people think, oh, you're in school to never get into college. I'm making it happen.
I like just being able to learn whatever I want to. I'm really into environmental sciences. Yeah, ornithology, ecology, environmental toxicology. Yeah, I'm interested in everything.
In this case, they're using hydrofluoric acid to enrich the gasoline and turn it into premium gasoline. So what do you want to do when you go?
A couple of things I haven't really decided 100% yet. That's a point off. At least 10 more years. I have this all planned out. Working here and then maybe working at like a different place, like Chick-fil-A or something, while also doing YouTube so I can get more income. And then invest. all of my stuff that I want to do when I grow up, it's not dating, but one of them is dating, which is being a waitress. Don't you only have $1? Yeah, because I spend most of my dollars on $1. I might be able to use some of my Pokemon cards. And you can sell them. And they're worth, like, some of them are like even worth $100. Okay, but are you going to just need them, some of them today? Because I'm not going to come back to the school tomorrow.
A lot of the kids were already thinking about how to make money.
Yeah. I'm rich. They make me rich. I don't be rich if I sell some of these Pokemon cards. You don't sell that. I need to get some more dollars.
And they had even developed their own free market economy. And the commodity of choice was Pokemon cards.
I have 5 1995s and 1 2021. People say that this can be one of these can sell for like $1,000. $2,000 card from
Teddy?
Yeah. 1995 cards.
He traded you one of yours for that or what?
A big V. And the moral of the story is you're hunting about
Sometimes the kids did things that didn't quite make sense to adults, and sometimes it was hard not to intervene, especially where safety was concerned.
You guys are really going at it.
But like real warriors.
Most of these guys are nice fun, and they're have a lot of juice, and so it's that question of no, but it goes, and I want to see if they can look at them. I mean,
My son once told me with tears of frustration in his eyes that all he wanted to do was fight as hard as he can. But he never found a place where he could do that until today.
You could.
But even though there was lots of fighting, there were no actual fights.
Let me use the ball.
uh-oh.
So what stops a school like this from becoming a chapter from Lord of the Flies?
It's down there. It's like right there.
Instead of total anarchy, kids respected each other's boundaries.
People in the trampoline, can you hear me? Computer club is happening in the living room, and jujitsu is starting in the studio right next to it.
So kids have a lot of freedom here, but we discovered that there are areas where the adults do intervene.
You're playing a game or something?
Play games, it's not about it at school. I do, but it's not about it. I don't use it.
Would you like to play games?
Yeah, I use it, but Candy said I'm not about to.
One way we're a little different than other ELCs is we don't do like this, like the limited screens all the time. It's used as tools, like screens is used as tools. Instead, what we've done is like we have this after school thing where that's a gaming club that happens at 3:30 right after school today. So they just take over the studio, bring in their devices, and then they do gaming with each other. It kind of like helps a lot with keeping it be more about personal contact and doing things together than just focusing on like individual games.
Do you play games on it?
Yes. And I could and make games myself.
When I learned about the restrictions on screens, I had a feeling it wasn't a rule the kids came up with.
I like the freedom of being able to do whatever you like.
The part about things
The things we like to do that you can't do.
Like I can't do here.
Yeah.
I don't think you can do Minecraft, for instance.
No, I don't really like screen time stuff. That's one of the things you can't do here that I don't work.
Things straight down though. It's not like it's doing straight down.
Yeah, I got to talk to Elsa a little bit. She's been a little bit awkward today, and she sees all the younger kids out playing around, and then she saw like this little group of older girls in a corner, and that's who she really wanted to talk to, but it was a little bit awkward just barging in. Our oldest daughter was having trouble connecting, so I kept trying to encourage her. It looks like ABT, but I think it's
So you can do art at 1 and then science at 2.
Japanese stuff.
Or I was
Science. Yeah, there you go. But running to mom and dad is not what she wanted to do.
Oh yeah, like, is there like different like spawns?
Yeah, so each affiliator leads one. So like that big group breaks up into like 8 little groups. And to just check in and be like, hey, what are you doing today? And then also to check in at the end of the day, like if it wasn't a good day or if there was conflict, to just kind of like be on the same page and to just share what you enjoyed in your day too. So
Yeah, I didn't know that.
yeah.
In the end, she worked it out in her own way.
Now I lost the audio. Can you guys hear it?
Same.
Oh, can you hear it?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, you guys.
We can hear you, but I couldn't hear the video anymore.
Okay.
Uh-oh, I wonder what happened.
Let's try again.
Where'd it go? Oh, there.
Wait.
There we go, you got it.
Can you hear it?
Hello? Good? Okay.
Good. All right.
Okay, I see the little red dot. That means it's recording, right? We cannot film outside because our cameras might not work anymore. Record to talking.
You know what that says? Well, yes.
All theory aside, there's really only one question on my mind. How do they turn out?
It's really scary. I'm constantly questioning my choices as a parent. Some of parents' concerns are like, well, what if my kid's not taking any of the classes? Or, you know, what if my kid spends all day outside playing in the fire? Sometimes in theory, like, things sound so great, but then in practice, they might not turn out the way you want them to be.
It's hard to know if these kids will be prepared for the future, especially since the future itself is so uncertain. But our experience of the kids at Zigzag is that they were already acting more like adults than a lot of adults we know.
What'd you guys find?
I saw this set of stairs, like a set of vines. We started digging it up, and so I went up and I grabbed some shovels. And then we started building a dam and planning out how we're gonna drain this and see what's down there.
They were taking charge of their own lives. They were working together, resolving conflicts.
Oh, cool. That's what's from my hand.
With no other agenda, kids were free to pursue their own interests, whether it was fighting, building, surviving, making money, or making friends. They even discovered things that the adults didn't know about.
Dude, we found a rock with letters and like spelling on it.
Come on, we're gonna walk it on.
And it made me wonder, if I had had this freedom as a child, what would I have done?
It's really hard for us to trust kids because as kids we were not trusted.
Colombia. Storm. There's a storm in Colombia.
But what if it turns out that we could have been trusted all along?
Good evening, guys.
Even now, I wonder if it's possible to turn things around so everyone can be as free and happy as the kids at Zigzag.
Great, what do you think, Marla?
Oh, man. Whoops.
That wasn't supposed to be there.
That's great.
Wow.
Still some tweaks.
That was
Yeah, lots of little tweaks.
That was our first time watching it through too, so.
That version.
Oh, man.
How did it feel to watch it for you guys? I mean, you made this out of nothing. That's incredible.
Yeah, well, Peter Jackson once said that he wishes he could have amnesia so that he would be able to watch Lord of the Rings and actually enjoy it. Because when he watches it, all he remembers is all the decisions and all the pain that went into it. But I mean it is at a point where like I feel really good watching it. Like it took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. But yeah, it feels good. It feels great showing it to other people. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I mean, just like even if you guys are the only people in the world that see it, like at least it got out there. It feels good.
I'd love to open it up for just also people intending to ask questions based off of what they saw in the documentary.
Please do.
Can I have a
Well,
question?
you look like
Oh,
okay,
Shao
Anna
has
first.
one? Oh, sorry.
No, I mean, so first of all, this was amazing. It's really, really good. I really enjoy it. I wasn't expecting this at all. And there are so I'm still trying to process it because there are so many things there that like you guys were saying that you wish that maybe you didn't want to give us answers, but actually making us ask the questions. Well, that's definitely happening, of course. And even though I work on education and I try to think outside of the box in the projects that I do, like seeing something that's so far outside of the box, like, oh my God, what is this? How is this even a possibility? So I was wondering, like, how is the process of finding out the school and actually going there and visit it? That would be like my first question. And the second question would be, so like you showed us the best experience, and I feel like this question is not so much related to education, but as creators, you're saying that you took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and I was wondering, like, what was the hardest part of actually making this? Because in the end, like the final product, at least in my opinion, it's amazing. So I would love to understand a little bit more about that.
Great.
So that's two questions.
Yeah, we'll try to keep the
Yeah,
questions
sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
First question is relatively
How did we
simple.
even find it?
We heard about ALCs like in 2016 or 17 when we moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. We visited the school there, made a good connection with the founders, And then when we were interested in, when we started this fellowship, we still had those connections and things, and we reached out to a bunch of schools. Most of the schools said, "Oh no, you can't film here." Like that's even the ones that were like friendly.
Filming children.
Oh my gosh!
I mean,
yeah, like it turned out to be quite a hurdle. But there was one school in Asheville, North Carolina, where they were like, "Come film everything. We'd love to have you here."
If you want a little bit more backstory of how we even, like the one in Charlotte, the only reason we found that one is because of our whole process of trying to find what works for our family, right? So we came across unschooling when I was looking into all sorts of different kinds of schooling when our oldest was getting to school age, right? And I'm like, whoa, what? This sounds too good to be true. And it's a self-directed learning thing, but but I noticed someone in the comments saying like, you're looking for more community, right? And that's been my struggle too, because even though unschooling has worked pretty well for us, the one thing it doesn't give us is that community, except just our own family. So I've always had my eye out for these like unschooling schools, and Sudbury Valley is one of the first ones that ever came out. That's like 50 years old or 60 years old now. But then ALC's put like a new twist on it with the agile tools. And also
so basically
giving the adults a little more input. Like Sudbury schools, it's actually democratic, like it's run by the kids. Like
supposedly.
Yeah,
we never
but I'm sure the adults still influence things. Like we can't help ourselves, right?
Okay, so anyway. The second question is, I would say from my perspective, the hardest part was like we went in filming and basically just wanted to film everything. So we filmed interviews, we filmed, the kids. We did 10 hours of footage for that half-hour movie. And originally we were just going to use parts of it in like a larger documentary about all these other schools. So we weren't even thinking like, okay, let's make a cohesive story. Right. So we just realized we have 10 hours of footage. There's like 1 million different movies we could make with the same footage.
That's the hardest part.
And that it was so painful to go through this whole process of like, what kind of story are we even telling? Like, I don't know if you've seen like Integrate Silence. Like that's one of my favorite movies. But it's like this art house 6-hour long movie where he's just like showing this like monastery up in the Alps. Like barely any
no talking, no narration,
it's just like it's so crazy. And it's like part of me wanted to like do that, just like show the kids, just show the kids and people learning and doing stuff.
But we also watched like March of the Penguins.
Oh, right.
I don't know if you guys have seen that.
Yeah, and then
we realized in that movie the narration was key to infusing it with meaning. Otherwise, it would just been a bunch of penguins doing stuff. Okay, I'm bored now.
So that was, to me, that was the hardest artistically, was just the painful process of letting go of all the different versions this movie could have been. Yeah. And then finally settling on one. Yeah. And yeah, that was tough.
It was hard. Yeah, just the decision making, and even just knowing we only had that footage to work with, so and because we didn't know the approach we were going to take, we didn't know what kind of interviews we needed, what kind of questions to ask, what kind of footage we wanted. We just went in, filmed as much as possible, and then that's what we had to work with. So anyway, yeah.
So it finally started coming together though, like when we realized that we could do a narration
and control the story through the narration, basically.
So like Martha, like halfway through the process, she actually wrote like a screenplay with narration and everything, and that finally got a cohesive kind of flow to it. So
yeah.
Yep.
Because otherwise we could have just called it kids doing stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Like half an hour of kids doing stuff, no connectedness at all.
Would not have quite been as entertaining.
Yeah, I really like the decision. Yeah, Joel, you first.
I was just thinking, I have a lot of other questions, but I'll let other people ask theirs.
Oh yeah, I just want to like appreciate like the choices that you guys made, because I do think that you could make like this. I can imagine you could make like this very esoteric, kind of like, ooh, what's going, like semi-mysterious. Like, yeah, I can see a lot of possible things you could have done. Yeah. And I like that you chose kind of a straightforward, like, so like Martha as the narrator, she's like exploring and asking questions, and we get to kind of see through her eyes in her questions in a way. I thought that was great. Like at several times, she asked exactly the question that I was kind of thinking but wasn't sure yet. And I was like, oh, that's, like how does it not end up in Lord of the Flies? How do the kids turn out? Like it's a great guided thing. So I think that was a very strong choice. Like I just want to appreciate that.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, just for our own reference, who here has read Lord of the Flies or know what it's about?
I mean, I know what it's about, kind of.
Okay. I just figured it was one of those books everyone's forced to learn to read in school, and I guess it's not everyone, but
yeah, that was another learning thing too. It was just realizing that like we make references to things, or for us, like we, in a certain sense, like a lot of questions, like even like the reading and writing question, like we had already like looked into that years ago. We kind of figured out how it worked, but like we were showing the first version to all these like my friends on Twitter, and like they kept asking like, well, what about reading and writing and math? And like oh yeah, we need to address that. Like I mean,
yeah,
like,
just because we've looked into it,
right,
and it's not a big question for us.
Or like and like Lord of the Flies, it's like, oh wait, some people don't know that. Yeah. And it reminded me, like when I went to coding boot camp, my teacher had this great motto that he tried to teach by, and he says, assume infinite intelligence and zero knowledge. And I love that idea. It's just like, assume that your audience is smart and will figure things out, but that they don't have necessarily the same facts you do. So all right, Anna has a question.
Yeah, no, more like a comment. A couple of years ago, I read that there was, and I forget where, there was an actual recreation of the Lord of the Flies, where they tried to see if kids would actually become basically genocidal monsters when they are left alone on an island to kind of fend for themselves. And the result was that no, like kids would, be resourceful and kind of groupish and make up team songs, and there would be a seceding other group where the badger is their symbol, and for the other it's the turtle, and it would be like it's adults where things go wrong, or maybe for children who had extremely inadequate adult care. And as I was watching the movie, I was reflecting on, I had so many summer camp flashbacks, and I had been to a variety of different summer camps, like Girl Scouts, religious summer camp, unrelated artistic summer camp, and there's only one type that never felt toxic. And actually I had almost like flashbacks a little bit here, because it reminded me of that the only summer camp series that I ever went into that was never toxic, where I only have good memories, and I still remember the songs, and I think there is something to, it's more like let the kids be kids and then let the adults learn from them. So I don't know, maybe I'm overly optimistic about the Lord of the Rings scenario not actually happening unless the adults make it happen.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that we didn't want to get into that too much because it's kind of out of the scope of the documentary, but like our personal theory is that bullying happens in places where kids are being bullied, or like, where does bullying happen? In prisons, like where people, any groups of people, adults or kids, are trapped, like literally trapped into an environment with people that they did not choose, and they can't, like all those kids you saw in that movie, if they got into a fight with some kid, they could leave. And they could probably talk to their parents and say, hey, if this school sucks, get me out of here. And based on the story, like the parents would probably be like, okay, sure, yep.
It's got the scarce resources, right? It's like,
imagine if you could leave. Just being able to leave. Kids aren't able to leave.
And that's like what he was talking about, kids having consent. Like kids didn't have to go to any of the offerings, and even if they showed up, they didn't have to stay. I mean, they could show up at some place like, I'm not interested in this, I'm gonna go do something else. I mean, like there's really no reason to. Yeah, it's really, really interesting. I mean, I thought about like in middle school is when I things started to go south for me in school, and I think this is common for a lot of people around that age. And just getting picked on for the stupidest things, you know, but you have no choice. You're going to see those people every day, and so you have to figure out how to survive with these people that are, you know, they're going to pick on you. And anyway, so yeah, a lot of these kids, I mean, obviously you saw it in the film, but got pulled out around the same age, you know. Thankfully, I mean, my background, I actually eventually did go to my parents and be like, I need to get out of there. You know, can I be homeschooled?
Like you were getting like suicidal. You were getting.
Yeah, or homicidal or both. I mean, it was bad, you know. And thankfully, I mean, even though both my parents were working, my mom was just ordered me an online curriculum I could do by myself. And it was like, actually, that's when I had more free time to start like actually writing screenplays and doing what I was interested in, you know, because it only took me a few hours a day to do my actual schoolwork. So that was an interesting experience. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Other comments or questions?
Yeah, there were some notes on the consent quotes. I think for a lot of us here, that was kind of the mind-bending moment in this, because it just so
about consent
rarely discussed. Yeah, that the kids have a say in what happens to them.
Yeah. Is there a question, or was that just a statement that was mind-bending? Like,
I think João was typing about it.
Yeah, no, I just loved it. I don't think I have a question about it. I was just so flabbergasted by it because once again, we don't think about it, and I just going back to the actual output, the documentary. I feel like you've made a lot of great choices in the. Once again, I don't know what you guys left out, and is that was actually one of my questions. Was like, what's like the one thing that you wish you could somehow sneak in there, but eventually you realize that for the overall documentary maybe didn't make sense, but like a story or something about a specific kid that you were like, yeah, I wish we could somehow sneak this into there. Was there any of it or no?
Graduates. Yeah. I mean, the missing piece of the puzzle that we wish we could put in is graduates, right? I mean, people who actually.
Yeah, because like the school is so new that like no one has actually graduated yet.
Yeah.
Like, and even that kid that we interviewed, like he's not actually like an official student. Like he's like a sibling of one of the other students, and he just comes out and hangs out. And
the one who's applying to colleges.
Right, the older one. Yeah. So it's like it really. That's something that we get a lot of questions about, and we're actually curious about too.
We've interviewed some unschooling adults, like adults who were unschooled, but we were trying to limit the film to just our day there, you know, and not go outside of it. So that was one limitation we placed on ourselves. Otherwise, we would have gone bonkers, like all over the place, you know.
Yeah. And we did, yeah.
You know, another to make it go more comprehensive would have been to interview people who had tried it and left. You know, like what's their input? And we actually did ask Hanny if they'd ever had to like expel someone or something.
And this goes into like the bullying thing too. Like they did have one kid who was basically
from public school,
school, and basically like only like it sounds like a sociopath. Like basically he was like just like super.
Is that he used aggression to try to get what he wanted?
Yeah, like normally what happens, and this would be an interesting scene if we could tie it in. But it's like normally what happens when kids like misbehave is that the other kids stop playing with them. It's a social
consequence.
It's like if you're an asshole, guess what? You don't have friends anymore, and you're just going to be by yourself. And like they had this one student though who didn't care about that. Like he didn't care about the social consequences, and that one was like they had to keep talking to him. They had they almost got to the point where they had to ask him to leave, but his parents decided to pull him out.
Right.
So yeah, that I mean that would give a little more kind of nuance into because we didn't want to make just like a commercial.
Right.
we wanted it to be like positive because we think it is a positive thing, but we also didn't want to gloss over too much. So
Yeah, but just to add, and I know someone posted a question in the chat, but just said that I didn't feel like at all that this was a commercial, because I didn't feel like you guys were focused on the school, but on the kids. I think that makes the whole difference. Sorry, I have more questions, but I'm going to shut up now and see what questions else.
Respond to Allison.
Oh yeah, Allison.
Allison's audio's not working, so you want to.
She said, "Yeah, should we read it, or do you have footage of?"
No, she can't hear us.
Oh, she can't hear us. Oh,
Can you hear us?
Oh,
you
she
can't.
can hear you. I think she's saying
okay,
that she
good,
can't say
Yeah, she
stuff
just
to you.
can't
So
talk.
I'll read it out. All right. So her question
Okay.
is, do you have footage of people's different ideas, differing ideas about what constitutes alternative education and the spectrum of school to unschool? So yeah, so I guess that's the first question. Like, do you have people's
So we did, like, in our grand scheme, our original scheme, we were gonna like actually go to, like, Waldorf schools, Montessori schools, public schools. Like that would be, that, like, if we're gonna be super comprehensive, can we find could you even find a public school that would let you wander around filming the students?
No.
Like,
I mean,
what do you like about school?
Yeah, the short answer is we have looked into lots of different forms of alternative education.
And you even did a YouTube
and
video,
I wanted to do a YouTube video, but we're out of time.
Yeah, but we do have footage. Like we talked to, like, the nanny we got, and she was actually kind of acting as a facilitator
for our kids,
like part-time for our kids. She worked at Montessori for a while, so we talked to her about Montessori.
Yeah, Montessori acting academies are another one on the spectrum that I would love to share about. Or there's just so many schools out there.
And like that's the thing too. It's like, and I hope our video kind of communicated that. It's like it is a spectrum, and like it really is, like just like the last question, like what if I as a kid had been trusted just a little more, right? Even just a little more. Like Martha said, like she was homeschooled, like her parents trusted her enough to take her out of school and let her do her own home, like all the schoolwork by herself. And she got it done in just a couple hours a day and was able to have the rest of her day to do whatever she wanted, right? I mean, so in my mind, like that is what we're talking about, right? I mean, if you watch this video and you're like, oh, if you're a parent and you're like, maybe I won't tell my kid what to do for an extra hour a day.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, even just another hour of freedom, just another hour. Like, that'd be great.
One thing that when we were interviewing the one thing we didn't include, but that I thought was nice that he said, or Hanny, the founder, talking about how they kind of went through the same thing, and they were looking at all these different alternative schools for their own family, right? And they settled on this one because his quote, I guess, is that it's really hard to do something really alternative. And most alternative forms just kind of take the model that's there and add a little bit more freedom, or make it softer around the edges or something. And so like when we were advertising our mini fellowship, I was sending emails out to all of the self-directed schools that I could find. But I'd look at their websites and I'd be like, well, they're not really self-directed. Like the kids get to choose from a few different courses or something. But otherwise it's pretty much the same as what you usually get, So like Hanny said, like it's definitely better. It's still better, but is it really alternative? So it's like you were saying, is like it's way outside the box. Like people are trying to think outside the box, but like this is flipping the box upside down. This is like turning it over. Like what if we do the complete opposite, which is the kids, the adults listen to the kids and the kids direct their own education, I don't know. So that's one reason I felt, even though we didn't end up making that bigger documentary about all the different schools, I felt like doing this school shows the complete flip side. And anything you do that's more towards that, and then you can find anything in between, basically,
Yeah, so I want to offer even more like encouragement in the sense that like so earlier before we watched the documentary, you guys were saying things like, "Oh, you feel like you failed, right?" Or like you, and look at you out.
Thank you.
Right, and so I actually empathize because I was I'm always thinking about the book that I wrote that I felt that like I wanted to spend I wish I had 50 years to work on it, and like you want to include all the research that's ever been done, you want to get everything possible, but you don't have that kind of time, don't have that kind of attention, resources, everything. And so I even did a bunch of reading about that feeling, and like George Orwell said, every book is a failure, in the sense that it doesn't live up to your grand vision of what is possible, or like what might theoretically be possible. But so like the best you can do, quote unquote, right, is to give the reader or the viewer like a sense of how you are seeing, a sense of how you're feeling, right? And I think you did that beautifully here. It's like really, like I always think about like, like sometimes a friend writes a good essay or something that feels good or whatever, and I want to praise it and stuff, but I can't really think about like how I would share it with other people. Whereas in your case, it's very clear. It's very clear that I can tell someone, hey, have you ever seen what like free range kids are like? Like, do you know what they feel like? Do you know what they talk like? Like, you should watch Nat and Martha's documentary, because it's like a few minutes and you will see what free spirit the kids are like. And that's, I think that's a very valuable thing to pass on. And then, if like, so they might not have gotten like a 10-part documentary yet, right? Like a 10-part documentary with every single kind of school, but you get them curious and interested and be like, oh, I want to know more, right? And then once you have that, that's the ticket. So I think you guys did great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, even one of the people that we sent the version 1 to for a review, he said, wow, watching this made me think maybe I want to have kids. I'm like, oh well, if that's a result, that's good. That was an unforeseen thing.
Well,
but...
I mean, that's it. You know what? Like when Martha and I, like we first started having kids, like we tried kind of like the traditional homeschooling approach that, like the schooling approach at home, basically, that I've been raised with. And we hated it. Like we hated being the authoritarian, like basically keep like making them do stuff and like keeping them in line. And it's like, why? Yeah. If that's what people think being a parent is, why the heck? Like, why would you want to have kids?
Right. And also, and we also noticed that our kids were starting to sneak behind our backs.
Oh, right. Yeah, we were the enemies.
We were the enemies, and we realized this was going to be a constant battle.
They were lying to us.
And the thing is, kids are smart. They know how they figure out how to get what they want. And if they have to do it behind your backs, or or even worse, maybe they're good kids and they just spend their entire lives suppressing themselves to please you, so it's either way, it's not a good deal, so we wanted to be their allies, not their enemies, and this seemed like a way to do it,
So we'll see. And they'll probably still go to therapy when they're older and talk about us and like have all sorts of trauma, and like, I mean, it's just, I think that's part of parenting. It's like,
it's inevitable. Anna?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a note to how cruel different versions of schooling are on parents. Like all my friends are having kids now, and when their kids go to school, they have full-time jobs, and then they get another full-time job, which is pleasing a nonsensical school, and they are like fruit day and cheese day and whatever, and so now both you and your kid are being terrorized by an institution that should be, first of all, helping the parent to take a load off of them, as opposed to like after a full-time job going home and doing 3 hours of homework with your kid.
And that's what like Martha said. Like she said, like, oh, she said public school is free, and I would disagree with that. And that's one reason we never got into it. It's like, no,
we don't want it controlling our lives.
There is a huge price to pay once you're part of that institution.
Yeah,
like in terms of your schedule is just completely it's gone. Like it's controlled by a bunch of it's just out of your control. Like, I mean, I want freedom too. That's the whole thing. I don't want to be a slave. I want my kids to be free, but I want to be free as an adult.
And that's the thing to realize is that kids and adults really want the same things.
Yeah,
I mean,
the same thing.
And that's been our perspective is like we're just big kids and they're just little adults. You know, we're all in the same boat, and we're here to help each other. I mean, you know, in the documentary it talks about age mixing, right? Like that's what our family is. We're age mixed. We're just older and they're younger. We're old enough to actually have jobs, or whatever. Who knows what? But they want to have jobs, so we give them jobs at least. But
I don't know. But it's an experiment. I mean, that's the thing too. It's just like, and that's what we wanted to show in this movie. It's like that's one reason we didn't want to just have the answers, because it's like it's an experiment. Like we really like, you know, 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road, how are those kids going to be? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
and that is the thing with one of the big controversies nowadays is like ChatGPT or I mean, I hear like Nat's siblings are very like teacher sympathetic and everything, and they're just like, oh, these poor teachers, kids are using ChatGPT to cheat and write their papers and stuff. I'm like, good for the kids. They're learning how to use new technology.
Yeah, they're learning how to use AI.
Why aren't you teaching the kids how to use it? Like, what is going on here? You know, like, do you want them to have be equipped for the future, or don't you? You know. Anyway, it's just yeah. So hopefully it gets out there a little more, or just like, yeah, anyway, trust kids. We learn from our kids all the time. Like they keep me up to date on the new technologies and the new memes or whatever. I don't keep up with this.
Yeah, we have Nintendo Switches, we have VR, we have all these things just because of
the kids. Like
our kids are like, hey, can we get this? Can we do this? Can we buy this? Can we? Oh, hey, watch this video. Watch this. Do this. It's great.
Yeah. Oh man.
Can I ask just one more question, because I'll have to leave, and I was really curious about
one thing.
Sorry. So after doing this, like going through the process, like, is there anything that you have changed in your own parenting style, or do you feel like it was just a confirmation of what you already were doing?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, one of my motives for even going to the school is whether we'd want to move to Asheville and go to the school, right?
Yeah. Or any of the schools. So.
Or any of the schools, right? So it really was an exploration, or even do we want to start our own school here or something like that, you know? And I think it was kind of an affirmation to me that we're doing pretty good as it is. You know, like it would be a huge like if we went here, I mean, the kids had a great time, but there's still being part of any community means that you have to sacrifice your own schedule, your own needs to a certain extent. So just like we were talking about going to public school and how they're going to control your lives or whatever, like it would be less here, I'm sure, but it would still be like we'd have less flexibility. We'd have to or even our kids, they love unlimited screens, right? So going to this school, that was interesting finding out that they're different from other ALCs where the adults basically are like, well, let's just have a thing at the end of school, you know? And the kids wanted to play Minecraft, and I know why, because kids do so much stuff in Minecraft, you know, or different things. But so anyway, it's like,
yeah, I mean, I think we'd still be open. Like, it definitely. I mean, to me, it reinforced like the value of like a community like that with all the resources and other adults.
Yeah, and
I would still like to see that at some point in our life. But my guess is that it'll probably be something we start if it does happen.
Yeah.
We're just too picky. We're so picky in a certain sense of like what kind of.
There's
what
so
kind
much
of
more
environment
to explore too. Like
in our own schedule.
There's this homeschool hub in South Jersey that we wanted to check out. It's called like Village, Heart of the Village or something.
Right.
And that's just this place where homeschoolers or unschoolers can come. It's not a school. It's just like a gathering place without a schedule. I mean, you can give like offerings if you want, but you're not like a student that's enrolled, and the adults can come too. And like,
right.
if the parents work remotely, they can like go upstairs where it's like reserved for quiet work, and then otherwise downstairs the kids can basically do what you see here. And it's, I mean, so there's lots of different models like this out there. We didn't get to visit, but I got to have a chat with them at least on Zoom and look at their website.
That'd probably be more realistic.
That would be more realistic. So that, yeah, because that would be more realistic. But I'd really seek something that has a low cost to benefit ratio, or I mean, like in terms of money and output, in terms of time and energy, and just something that just grows organically, I suppose.
Yeah. So one thing we didn't mention is that Hanny, the guy we talked to a lot, he and his wife, and I think they have like 2 or 3 kids there. That's their house.
Right.
That house, there's a house next door to the main school building where they live. And they bought all that property and stuff like 3 or 4 years ago, right before the pandemic. Like it was like terrible timing. But specifically to like basically run this school from their house. So I think that's a really cool, I mean, it just means they have tons of freedom. You know, they can do whatever they want. It's like they own that.
I could see us doing something like that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Well, which is another thing I wanted to look into was there's a place called Schoolie Homestead Village down in Georgia. And I wanted to go visit there with our schoolie because that's even less of a commitment. Well, one problem we ran into like at this school is you have to go home at the end of the day, right? And some of these families were commuting like an hour.
Yeah.
Like they didn't even live in the same town.
Yeah.
So even the pain of having to drive that far to drop them off every day, but like, so the idea of having an actual village, and if it's schoolies, it's not a huge commitment, you know, if you want to go out on a trip, or if you just get sick of your neighbor, you're just like, you're out of there. So I wanted to check that out too. There's so much I wanted to do. So much.
It will happen.
It's okay. It's okay.
I love the idea of like a multi-part documentary, and even just I'm so curious about all of these schools. Like if there was like a list you had where you could share and people could research all of the schools that you weren't able to like tap into. It's like, yeah, I mean, I love that. I think that's an incredible resource for people to be able to sift through like a directory of all these options. We are at time, and I want to thank everyone for your questions, for sharing the documentary. We basically got, you know, like a first preview into it. That was incredible. And I love, you know, like it was very different from different other salons, but we just got to tangibly just enter this zigzag school and see what it's like and talk.
Show don't tell.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Perfect. Is there anything, Martha, Nat, that you want to share just about OSV, or just how do we watch the documentary and how do we share it moving forward and things like that?
Yeah, well, we're gonna do some tweaks. We noticed a few things when we watched it.
We have 2 more weeks of our fellowship.
2 weeks left. But he's going to Burning Man, so you're gonna be gone. But,
you don't think I can do editing on Burning Man? Bring my computer.
But at the moment, our plan is just to post it on our YouTube channel, which is Nat and Martha Sharpe. Nat and Martha Sharpe, or just Nat and Martha? Yeah. I think if you just search for Nat and Martha Sharpe.
Yeah, like we could try like selling it to someone or whatever, but like we don't really. Like in our mind, like the movie was already paid for. Like that was the gift of this fellowship, is that basically normally when you make a movie or spend a lot of time working on some creative project, you have to have like some sort of business model and like idea of how you're going to make money off it to justify all the time you're putting into it. But what OSV does is basically is remove that and just be like focus on whatever you want.
Right.
And it really did feel like we were unschooling kids in a certain sense, you know. Like it was so cool. Like it was so cool to like have this opportunity again to spend 6 months pursuing our interests, playing, right?
Yeah. Nat even got to fly out to New York and meet with Jim face to face and just be like, no, you're serious that you really just want us to do what we want. Like you don't
want any kind of specific movie or like any kind of.
And he's like, what part of No Strings Attached don't you understand? You know, we wanted to make like a behind the scenes movie, like the Fellowship of the Sharpes.
Still good.
And that could be like the opening shot. You know,
I have footage. I have footage of him saying that. It's great. So yeah, it's definitely a gift, and I'd love to see more opportunities like that for adults to explore, right?
Yeah.
to basically do the things that they didn't get to do as a kid, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this
And
is the
don't have
thing.
I mean, as Jim says, the world is full of geniuses, you know, they just need the opportunity to, I see a finger pointing there. We got a little genius here.
Awesome.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
So any other videos we release will be on our YouTube channel as well. That's pretty much where I put everything.
But yeah, we'll probably be we'll do a few more final touches here, and then probably release it at the end of this week or end of the month. So, but yeah, we'll post about it on Twitter. So, but it really feels so good to get your feedback. And,
oh, I'm so glad you liked it.
Yeah. It was like a little baby that we're sending out into the world. It's just like, oh man. Cool.
Wow.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you for the amazing hosting, Katrina and Visa as well.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Everyone.
I can't wait to watch the final version and
All right. And remember,
every day.
trust your inner child. You can
Yes,
trust your inner child.
listen to your inner
Even
child.
if you don't have
trust.
kids, you can trust your inner child. All right. Talk to you.
so much, guys. Thank you. Thanks for watching as well.